So if you had to put your emotions into one word, leaving the hospital that day, having gotten that from the doctor, what one word would you summarize that day in?
There isn't one.
Yeah.
There's not a word. I wish I could tell you, but there's not one. We were scared to death. We were worried. We didn't know what to do, who to call. We didn't know what to say to each other. So we sat there and laughed.
The only thing you could do was laugh at how ridiculous. I mean, just
the only thing I think I could imagine comparing to what we got that day was just somebody were to set you down and say, "You've got terminal cancer and you've got a week to live."
Yeah.
And even then, I still could have lived with that probably a little better than I did with this.
This month features an incredible couple with an adorable boy by the name of Leo. This is a family that will help teach you how to enjoy the ride. With me is Josh Veach. I am Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. That's a really cool design that you just showed me. That's a really cool design. How'd you come up with that?
So we, every time when our design process, we're thinking about like, how do we connect the design uniquely to the family, but also come up with a design that is, broad in appeal. And what's cool about Leo's family is that they made a really, as you'll hear in the podcast, in their conversation, they made a choice in an early diagnosis to like focus on the quality of life over quantity is the term that they use. Like they want Leo just to have a happiness and just like every parent wants for their kid, and they weren't going to let a diagnosis get in the way of that. And so the idea that he loves horses and is they're focused on making the most of the moments that they have. The phrase "enjoy the ride," especially partnered with a horse, just kind of made sense. And so, we really like how it turned out, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. It's
a really cool T-shirt. It kind of stands out as you were talking to the family about it. You kind of got, and each shirt that we have is kind of like our own child, so to speak. Like we're very proud of the shirts, but you got a little giddy with this one. And That was kind of fun to see.
Well, and what's as we're having this conversation, we record these podcasts a couple weeks, typically, sometimes a little bit even more than that, before the month launches. And so we're still in the process of refining the design. And so it wasn't quite final when we were having that conversation with Bob and Lauren. And so I wasn't quite ready to show them, but this was my first time getting to talk with them one-on-one. And so as they were answering these questions, we were having this awesome conversation. I did get, as you mentioned, getting giddy about the shirt. It just was reinforcing that we were going in the right direction with the shirt. Like that their story and the design direction that we were headed was dead on. And so, that is exciting to me. I feel like that means we're heading the right direction in what we're doing. So
like some small cathartic moments that kind of fall into place with these things.
That's
it was
right.
really
That's
nice. Right. Man, it was like 5 minutes into this conversation with them, and I could tell that they were, relational, open, honest, and were going to be clear and have a lot to share. And I guess that had me thinking, initially, if people who are listening to this don't have a kid on a similar journey or they don't even know anyone, why listen to these conversations? Why hear their stories? What can they expect to get out of a podcast or a conversation from people like Bob and Lauren?
Ooh, that's good. Perspective. I think conversations anytime that you get to know someone else's normal, a normal that's different than yours, and it's not just rare medical journeys. You and I have talked about fostering and adopting. Mm-hmm. Those become somebody else's, if that's not your normal and someone else is living through that and you get to know their normal, it changes how you see the world. It helps you grow. So I think these conversations can help people with that. I also think it equips people to love well. One of the questions that we talk about in our conversation with Bob and Lauren is, what's an example of how someone can be there for you in the smallest way? And they mentioned a frozen casserole, or, these little things, these little acts of love and kindness at moments when things just are difficult, and somebody steps up to kind of fill the gap, or be a resource, or be a help, or just be a conversation, a friend. I think these conversations that we have on the podcast can help people. It equips people to love well, because you're hearing about what has worked and helped other people. And whether someone's listening and they will never have anyone close to them that goes through a rare medical journey, they are 100% guaranteed to have someone close to them going through a difficult time. And the acts of showing up and being a good neighbor, being someone who shows up and is a person of kindness, is a person of generosity, and kind of helps someone else. That's a choice and gift that we all have if we take it, right? I mean, it's our choice to be involved in that way. And so hopefully, if someone's listening and doesn't have a child in their life on a rare medical journey, they can take away tips on how to love well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it feels like you could even, to kind of take it a step further with how divisive topics are nowadays. You could say anything and it's completely divisive. And those two things that you mentioned, if you were to able just to even listen to somebody or step in their shoes, even if you don't agree with them, and then take that and love them well, man, it seems like things would just become a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Conversations would be healthier.
Yeah. And Bob made a point of that in our conversation in the podcast, that it's in these times, it's difficult to see the good. It's difficult to see kindness at work. And yet these two folks are telling us it's still there. It's still happening. And I think at the heart of what we're doing at Go Shout Love, that's our purpose, right? Is to be an extension, to be a catalyst for people who agree with that and who want to be a part of that, to show up and love on these families. And that's what they do.
Well, one of the things that it was toward the end of the conversation, Bob kind of said, and he was answering, advice that you would give to other parents or to anybody really. And he said, slow down, everything will be okay. And for some reason that hit me. It's like a word that I needed to hear today, because I need to slow down. There's some things going on that I could really use to take a step back. Did you hear anything that struck you?
Yeah, that same sentiment. In fact, man, you want to hear a hard lesson. My 4, almost 5-year-old, said, "Dad, why do you work so much?" And he's like, because he had asked, like, hey, he was asking, could we play? And I had the laptop, and this was outside we've been snowed in, so I've been working from home. And this is outside of working hours. This was in the evening while him and our youngest were playing, and he made something. I said, yeah, just give me a minute. He said, no, just close the computer. Let's just stop working and let's play. And I was like, oh man, he's right. He is absolutely right. I need to close the computer. I need to just stop, and it's going to be okay. Like, that thing may not get done until 1:30 in the morning, or it may not get done until tomorrow, and it will be okay.
Yeah.
This is the time to listen and learn from my 4-year-old. And it was a humbling moment. And it's something that I'm vowing to try to be better at. But yeah, Bob's statement, as far as what you just, one of the things that he mentioned earlier on in the conversation was, to enjoy the things that are right in front of you. And, man, yeah, that's a lesson I needed for sure. I need to.
Sometimes you turn the corner of the house and you see like 1 or 2 of your kids standing there, and they just suddenly look bigger than they did earlier that day.
Yeah.
And you begin to think, this is going by way too quickly. My oldest is 10 now, and that starts terrifying me because I miss him being small and incapable of things, and now he's capable, and he's making jokes that I would make, and it's terrifying for multiple reasons.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But the worst is I'm running out of time. So I need to slow it down.
I was listening to a series by a speaker by Andy Stanley on parenting, and he used the phrase that the days are long and the years are short. And it was like, oh yeah, I feel that.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of get people into this conversation because Bob and Lauren were fantastic. I would have loved more than anything to meet them in person, to spend some more time with them. But as shouters, what can people do?
Yes, so you can right now go to goshout.love. That's our website, www.goshout.love, and you will find the T-shirt that is inspired by Leo, the Enjoy the Ride T-shirt that we've been talking about, and you can purchase that as well as anything on the shop. So we have hats, we have previous designs, sweaters, hoodies, tanks, some drink items, some cups. Any of those purchases will support Leo in helping. The funds will be put into the savings account that Bob and Lauren mentioned as far as trying to raise funds for their handicap accessible van. So any purchase that you make, if you want to help families just like Leo, just like Bob and Lauren every month, you can sign up to be a monthly subscriber. And you can do that in the form of a monthly T-shirt subscription. Or if you're not a T-shirt person, you're not out of luck, you can just sign up to be what we call a shout-only subscriber. And that just means you're sending in a donation every month. And so you can do that as well. And so we can also love to have you rate and review this podcast. And that helps us get the word out and share it with a friend. You know, somebody that's going through a season that might... as you listen to Bob and Lauren, and they might be encouraged or challenged by what they have to say, we'd love for you to pass it on to them.
Yeah, so we are not the only ones encouraged by what they have to say. We want that to reach as far as it can, and it should go without saying, but we appreciate all you people who are shouting currently and are sharing this podcast and other things involved with families. And we're really excited to share Leo with you. He sounds like a fantastic kid. And so we're just going to kick it off. Here is Bob and Lauren talking about Leo.
So one of the things that we like to do at the beginning of the podcast is to make sure that we are introducing your child. We want to know Leo. We don't want to know, we're going to get into the diagnosis. We're going to get into the medical journey things. But one of the greatest joys that we as a team have is getting to celebrate these kids and what makes them kids. And so outside of the medical piece, just introduce us to your son. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, Leo, he'll be 5. They're coming pretty soon.
Less than a week.
Yeah, so by the time this airs, he'll be 5 years old. He is a funny little boy. He loves to laugh and play.
Loves to go outside.
Yep. Loves to snuggle and be held.
Big fan of music.
Yes.
As long as it's not country music.
Very particular taste in music, actually. Yeah. It's funny. So
I find that interesting because you guys are in Oklahoma. I think you have some I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you guys are country folks, right? You have some land or enjoy time on the land. So he's not a country music fan though.
No. And we listen to country music, and since he was actually a baby, he has hated it.
Yeah.
He prefers.
The first time we noticed it was we were coming home from somewhere, and an Elton John song came on, and he started laughing real loud.
Yeah.
And I tried playing some country music after that, and he was upset and mad and wasn't having it.
So he's been pretty independent for quite a while then when it comes to his music, especially.
He lets you know his opinion, you know?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like my kind of guy. I'm not much of a country music fan either, but my wife is. So we find common ground there. So we try to meet in the middle. So he loves, what else? He loves music. What else about Leo do we need to know?
He loves riding horses with Bob.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of sits in front of him on the saddle, and they kind of have that worked out. He loves doing that.
He's a big animal person, actually.
Yeah.
He dogs, cats, horses, cows, everything. He likes animals.
Yep. He's, you know, we have a lot of animals around here, and he's right there with us on all of it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What makes him happy, or what makes him smile?
What makes him smile?
To go fast.
Yeah. The teacups at Disney World.
The teacups at Disney World, he likes those. He likes to spin.
Yep.
The bigger the motions is what makes Leo laugh.
Yeah.
We'll get to push him around in his wheelchair, and if you're at a run, that's when he's happiest.
Yep.
That and bouncing over things and stuff like that. It's a very rambunctious type of kid.
Yeah. So he's all boy.
Yes.
Very much so.
He is.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So he's almost 5 now. So tell us a little bit about how having Leo in your life and him making you parents, what that journey has been like.
It's been a journey, that's for sure. You know, it's not one that we ever expected. We had no idea that anything would be different, you know, about our lives.
Yeah.
So, gosh, that's such an in-depth question.
Yeah.
It's changed every part of our life.
It's changed
you know?
every part of our life.
It's changed who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And Leo doesn't have any siblings, right? He's your first kiddo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's the change of parenthood that comes with children no matter what.
Yep.
But then you guys are living in a unique, because he's on a rare medical journey. You have uniqueness in your story that comes with a second level of transition or change. So tell us a little bit about, before we get into the diagnosis, tell us when you started to notice that something might be up and what those kind of indicators were that made you, concerned that then ultimately led to a diagnosis.
Yeah. It was actually a couple days.
From the get-go.
Yeah. First couple days.
We knew something was up. He had a hard time, learning how to eat and stuff like that right off the bat. And temperature regulation was not very good at the time. So we kind of
keep his temperature up.
We knew something was going on, and he always
lab works came back just kind of weird.
Yeah, they were just a little bit off.
And the first where he was born, they were kind of like, oh, normal. You guys are just first parents. You're very nervous about being first time parents, but it's that gut feeling. We just knew something was weird. And he started having weird movements, kind of tremors, I guess. Yeah. And that kind of sent us on a journey to a children's hospital, and they agreed. They're like, yeah, something might be going on, and I think from there they did an MRI, and that's really where everything started.
That's where everything.
Yeah, they saw that his myelination wasn't as formed as it should be, which is the white matter in his brain, and they're like, well, maybe he's just early, quite a bit earlier, but that didn't really make sense because he was full sized.
So a lot of doctors thought we were crazy, thinking that we had the timing off on stuff.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's a preemie. He has all the symptoms of being a preemie, and brain bleed and all this, but he was the size of a full-term baby almost. So, but they started to kind of piece things together and just couldn't quite figure it out for a while. So,
which from there led us to genetic testing.
Yeah.
And the first round of genetic testing, everything seemed normal.
Yeah.
And they didn't know exactly what was going on, which eventually ended up leading to a full genome sequence test. And that's kind of when everything was discovered.
Yeah.
And so as part of that process, that involves his genetic testing and testing for both of you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We actually
and
got
so
really
that is
we got really lucky. The waitlist in Oklahoma for it was 2 years.
Yeah.
But we were impatient, and they gave us the opportunity to do it. And they said, listen, this is your chance. So of course, we took, we're like, yes. Yeah. And so we were able to get it. I think he was about 6 months old at that time. He was in hospital for a G-tube placement. So.
So because he was admitted at the time, you were all three able to get your testing done, which then ultimately led to a diagnosis.
Yes.
Had you not been able to do that, unless something else would have been figured out, you would have had 2 years of waiting before you would have gotten that
maybe
diagnosis.
Maybe longer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did the sequencing and the testing, what did the results come back to? What was the diagnosis they received?
Took about 3 months to get the results. Came back saying that he had what was called Aicardi-Goutieres Syndrome, specifically on his TREX1 gene, which in our world is called type 1. It's one of the more severe types, early onset, which makes it a little bit more difficult as well. So yeah, it was a hard day.
It was weird.
Yeah. And I'm assuming because it's rare, that's probably something that you guys had not heard of before.
Oh
no,
the geneticist had not heard of it.
Yeah, that's how rare it was around here, that they had no idea what was going on or even which direction to point us from there. Yeah. They kind of said, here's the information, good luck.
Yeah.
So if you had to put your emotions into one word, leaving the hospital that day, or leaving having gotten that from the doctor, what one word would you summarize that day in?
There isn't one.
Yeah.
There's not a word. I wish I could tell you, but there's not one. We were scared to death. We were worried. We didn't know what to do, who to call. We didn't know what to say to each other. So we sat there and laughed.
The only thing you could do was laugh at how ridiculous. I mean, just
the only thing I think I could imagine comparing to what we got that day was just somebody were to set you down and say, you've got terminal cancer and you've got a week to live.
Yeah.
And even then, I still could have lived with that probably a little better than I did with this.
Yeah.
And that was the prognosis that they gave you that day, was a week?
No, they said about a year.
They said about a year.
Okay.
They said she had the geneticist. She had done a little bit of research whenever she had found out what it was, and the best that they'd come up with was about a year, and that's about it.
That's about all she said. Pointed us actually in the direction of a Facebook group, support group for his diagnosis, and that was really about it. And
what was that experience like? Checking out a Facebook group and that being the best resource opportunity at the time.
Actually, it was an amazing resource. I think that probably was life-changing for Leo, was having that resource, because all of a sudden we weren't alone. There's other people like us, and also they told us who to get into contact with. The Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, there's 2 doctors in the whole world that deal with AGS. One of them's in Philadelphia. Said, get a hold of Dr. Vanderveer in Philadelphia. She will take care of you. And we did, and she took care of us, and we go up to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think we were on a plane and
we were on a plane and just
a month
recently after that. So
wow.
Yeah, we go.
I want to dive more into the relationship with the Children's Hospital there of Philadelphia, but tell us a little bit more about his diagnosis and in layman's terms, what is going on in his body and how that impacts his day-to-day life.
Yeah, so it causes quite a few different things. Inflammation within the brain. So what they originally thought was a brain bleed was actually calcifications in the brain. It also causes, reduced myelination? Yeah, so the white matter isn't quite as formed as it should be. That makes it hard for the brain to send signals to the body to tell it what to do, which controls, our entire body, everything from eating, drinking, moving your hand, everything is kind of affected by that. It makes it a little bit more difficult, quite a bit more difficult for him. Causes random fever spikes. Some kids with AGS have skin issues. Leo doesn't quite deal with that as much. Mm-hmm. But he is strictly G-tube fed, nothing by mouth, because he would choke. It would go into his lungs. He's all G-tube fed. Uses a wheelchair. He's not able to even lift his head up. He doesn't even have head control or trunk control. So it's, pretty much affects every part of his life.
Every part of his life, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you, after finding this hospital and this specific doctor, one of 2 you said, what has the journey looked like from, that I'm assuming that was around, if I'm doing the math right, around month 9 or 10, Leo's probably 9 or 10 months old at that time of his first visit.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So what has the journey looked like between then and now? Obviously there's been some major wins, and he has pulled through and done things that weren't expected because he's getting ready to turn 5, or he is 5 by the time folks are listening to this. Tell us what that journey's been like for the last 4 years and change.
Well, they actually enrolled us in they asked us, if we wanted to, but we got hooked up in a drug trial for research medications, compassionate use. And it's just a medication that reduces inflammation. And we don't know what, capabilities Leo would have without that medication. He was pretty young whenever he started it, but he's been doing better than I think anyone ever expected from it. We fly up there. First
year it was
we were up there.
5
times in
at
one
least
year.
5 times in a year. Yeah, and then
which is far from Oklahoma.
Yeah, and then
Right.
it was, and then it turned into every 3 months.
Yeah,
we were up there, and things have slowed down now. But you can imagine what it's like with a medically complex child going through security at an airport.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Feeding pump and all these canisters of formula
And then not to mention coming
medications.
back with research medication. It was,
It's been an
you got some
interesting
looks
years.
from time to time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're amazing up there, and they've really been able to, give us answers to certain questions, tell us things to look out for. They keep a good check on his blood levels, and making sure that things that we would never know to look for, they just keep an eye on them for us, and kind of really manage his care for us. Wonderful.
Yeah. Have you been able to or needed to visit since COVID has taken over? Have you been, how has that impacted Leo's care?
Fortunately, no, we haven't. They, like I said, they do a great job up there, and we're able to get his medication shipped to us and go through our local doctors and get all his blood work done. They still need all of the same things. We do some telehealth care things with some of the like PT and OT that they have on staff, just to kind of, but they've done a great job, and we've not had to worry about traveling up there during this whole time.
That's great. That's great. So I know that there are folks that listen that are on their own, they have their own rare medical journeys with their kiddos, and traveling. I know traveling with kids is difficult in the best scenarios. Traveling when they're, like you were saying, Bob, when there's medical equipment and all these other things that you have to pack for and plan for. Have you guys in having to do that for 4+ years, have you learned any tricks or tips that you would pass on to other families that have had to go through something similar?
Oh yeah. The first one I can tell you is don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
There was actually one trip I had to make myself. Lauren had to stay back and work, and flight attendants will bend over backwards for you if you need some help, especially if you've got a child and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd say, and also call TSA Cares before your trip.
Yeah.
And they will actually escort you through security. You don't even have to stand in line. They just literally take you to the front of the line, and they help you with everything.
They make sure you get all the way through. They're willing to go to the gate if you need them to. So,
yeah. They'll even
wow.
Yeah, it's wonderful. He's a good traveler too, so we got lucky on that. He loves airplanes. Yeah. He loves to travel. He doesn't cry or anything on them. So
the more turbulence, the better for him.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the time on the horse comes in, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of that simulated movement, and yeah, awesome. Okay, so one of the ways that what's cool about your story is that we see this a lot in families, that when they get dealt a hand that they didn't plan for, right? You don't, like you mentioned it before, it's not the journey that you saw coming. But what we see time and time again is these families and parents that they choose to make the most and step into learning and growing and making the most of whatever's in front of them. And Lauren, one of the ways that you have done that is you've kind of decided that you're going to be a resource and help other parents, I think especially moms that are going through situations that are in some way similar to what you guys have gone through. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually just got certified in life coaching, and this has been something that's a long time coming. I always knew I wanted to help special needs moms because I've been there. I've been through the struggles. I understand a lot of the struggles that we go through, and life coaching is something that has helped me a lot. It's really taken, can get you out of that dark place, pull you forward, and really change your perspective on this life, change the way you view everything. A lot of people see disabilities as a negative thing, or, their child's medical issues as a negative thing. And yeah, they're not fun, but like you said, you can also see it in a way of making the most of it. So I'm really, really excited to get it going. I'm really excited to be doing it.
Yeah. Bob, as a husband and or father, how have you seen this journey change you, or has it changed you? What have you learned in the process as being Leo's dad, and especially walking through these days with Leo?
It's made me realize that I need to slow down some. I come from a background of, you just bear down, grit, and go to it. Man, you just got to slow down and enjoy life. And that's what he's done mostly for me. And I know a lot of dads out there have that mentality of, I'm the provider now, and things have to be taken care of, and I'll fix it. You can't fix this. You have to live with it and do the best you can. And that's what has changed me significantly, and to realize that I just have to go along with what I have, and we'll make the best out of it. And we're going to have fun doing it. So,
have you found, Lauren talked about the Facebook group and especially being able to connect with other moms. Is there a similar outlet or connection point that you've found, whether it's specific to Leo's diagnosis or not, that is a point of encouragement or strength for you?
Not necessarily. I'm not the biggest social media guy either, but there are some other dads out there that I'm friends with, and that's what I would suggest to other dads is look for other guys out there that are willing to talk with you and go through some of the scenarios that you have going on in your head. Everybody's got those things, but no, I haven't found anything out there that's just out to the public. I'm sure there are things, but the thing you need to do, or that I've done, is, like I said, you have to have a group of people that you can sit and talk to about the things that you can't talk to yourself with.
Yeah. What about those that have been closest to you? What has been the response in family or friends? Not just specifically you, Bob, but for both of you. What has the response been like? Are those that are closest to you now, are they the same people that were closest to you when Leo was 6 months old, or have you seen that shift over time?
It's shifted. I know it's crazy, but a lot of people that we're close to, maybe we don't even see, but maybe once a year now, because, it's, for me at least, it is more of those virtual relationships with other AGS moms. They're just special needs moms, because just natural. They get what I'm going through. They get what we're dealing with. Our families have really kind of protected, and they've kind of gone in with us. We've gotten closer with some of them, and so.
There's, like I said, close-knit group of friends that, some that have moved away and stuff like that you can't talk to hardly near as much as you used to. But I mean, yes and no. There are guys there and family members and stuff that have always been there and will always be there. So
sure. And some of that change happens naturally over time anyway. Right. So it's hard to know whether that's specific to the journey. We've had some families that have identified that, there are those that are closest to them that learn to try to understand as much as possible and just show up. And then there are times where going through seasons like that, people naturally don't understand. And some of the unintended consequences are distance in those relationships. So
Yeah.
I was just curious how you guys may have seen that lived out.
Yeah.
I want to shift just for a second and hear what do you love, Bob, about being Leo's dad?
Everything. He's the first person I want to see when I get up, and my favorite thing is whenever I get to put him to bed. We have a routine that we go through, and I just love being around him. He's my best friend. You know, he's the person that I know I can take him with me, or he just wants to be with me all the time. That's what I love most.
That's awesome. And Lauren, I'm sorry you don't get off easy on this one. What do you love the most about being able to be Leo's mom?
Oh gosh, it's so easy to say everything. He is just perfect little kid. I mean, I know he's got the differences most people wouldn't say, oh, perfect. But, like, he's perfect just the way he is. You know, he's Leo.
He's ornery.
Yeah, but he's ornery, and people think he's a little angel, but he's ornery. But yeah, he's just, he's genuine. Whenever he smiles at you, it is genuine. And it's just love, and he just loves to cuddle, and so he's the best.
What? How did Leo get his name? Where did that name come from?
So, my family, we team rope. I've done it my entire life, and my grandpa had a saddle that was, it's older than I am, but it's a Leo Camarillo edition saddle, and on top of the saddle horn there's a horn cap that says Leo Camarillo, and my dad learned how to rope out of this saddle, I learned how to rope out of this saddle, and it's Leo's saddle now, and that's every time you'd look down you'd see that name Leo, and that's where he got his name.
Thanks for listening. This is part 1 of 2 episodes with Bob and Lauren. Stay tuned for part 2, which will feature a lot of relevant insight on their lives and perspective for all of ours. And that is one of the features of this podcast that I truly do love. Now, at Go Shout Love, if you're not familiar, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. And each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's Enjoy the Ride design is inspired by Leo, a loving, sweet, and ornery 5-year-old from Oklahoma. Leo encourages us to look for the positive in each day and to enjoy the ride. And every purchase in March will go towards helping the family save up for a wheelchair-accessible van. So visit our website, goshout.love, to support Leo through the purchase of a t-shirt, a sweater, a hoodie, a tumbler, or other items. Please rate and review and then share this podcast. Do you have a friend or a coworker who can't find something to watch or listen to? Tell them about this podcast and let them in on some amazing families and their stories. And who knows, maybe they will join you and all of us as we go shout love.